Hello, it is Ellen Weatherford, and I want to wish everyone a happy first day of the MaxFunDrive. MaxFunDrive is the absolute best time of year to support Just the Zoo of Us and listen to Just the Zoo of Us, because we go all out to create fun and exciting content like you are about to hear. MaxFunDrive will run until May 1st, but if you want to support Just the Zoo of Us or others on the network today and help us kick off the drive with a really strong start, just visit MaximumFun.org/join or click the link in the episode notes. Just the Zoo of Us listeners are the best listeners. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to Casters on Casters. Conversations about the art and craft of podcasting with the masters of the microphone, the titans of talking, the rulers of remote recordings. On today's show, Teylor Smirl, still buffering, and Ellen Weatherford, just the zoo of us. This is Casters on Casters.
Hey there, Taylor.
Hello, Ellen.
It is so nice to get to talk to you. I'm so excited to finally meet you.
Absolutely, same. This is amazing.
Tell me a little bit about Still Buffering.
Yes, Still Buffering is a cross-generational podcast, and by that, it's me and my older sister. We talk about pop culture moments from the past and today and try to make sense of it all. That's the pitch. What do you do, Ellen?
I am the host of Just the Zoo of Us, which is about animals. We rate them out of 10 in different categories, and sometimes it's me and my husband just sitting around goofing and bantering. And in that case, I do a lot of pretty in-depth research. I do, all the notes and everything like that. It's a really fun. We're learning a lot, and then in the other half of our episodes, we have guests on who are. They could be zoologists, they could be veterinarians, sometimes they're musicians and artists and comedians and people who kind of come into a love for animals through like more creative avenues. So a wide gamut of perspectives, but it's always fun. And we always learn something new.
I have to ask, how do you possibly have a podcast based around ranking animals and not rank them all at 10?
A lot of times it is just 10s.
Sometimes every animal I've ever seen, I'm like, that's a 10.
That's a 10 right there. And a lot of times I have the benefit of not being like face to face with the animal, right? So I'm not like being completely biased, I guess. Because
the animal doesn't have to hear your review.
There are a lot of animals that I feel like when you see like a picture, they don't photo well. You know what I mean? Like they don't look good in a picture and you're like, ooh. And then you see one in person and you're like, I kind of get it now.
It would be harder if you were in front of the animals giving them their ranking. You don't have to worry about that.
I had a guest on a long time ago who was a chameleon researcher talking about chameleons. And at one point in the episode, he's like, oh, here, I'll just show you. And just turned and grabbed a chameleon from like just off screen.
That feels like that Jerry Springer moment where it's like, oh, now we're going to bring out the person that you've been talking about backstage. Yeah. Like, the chameleon was here all along. He heard all your thoughts.
Now, Taylor, is Still Buffering like a nostalgia outlet for you, do you feel like? Are you kind of reflecting on the sort of pop culture of your own youth? Or are you kind of looking forward?
It's a little bit of both. I think it's important. I mean, especially my older sister. She's got 2 young daughters, so I think it's a way for her to keep up with whatever is going on with the youth of today. But I do enjoy the nostalgia part of it. Sometimes we go into like, I brought this to the table because I really love this. And then we start getting into it and like, this is why I'm the way I am. I was really into Mulan's cross-dressing masculine presentation. Oh. Now I'm a boy. Oops.
A lot of times I hear so many people say that they got into their like careers in biology or ecology or conservation because they grew up in the sort of golden era of Animal Planet content. Steve Irwin, Jeff Corwin. There was just like this really strong era of Animal Planet content that was like geared at, not little kids, but maybe like middle school age demographic. And I feel like that was one of the most effective propaganda campaigns because I've talked to so many people who are like, yeah, I'm the way I am now because I grew up on all this content. What gave you the sort of idea to do this podcast with your older sister about like the media that you grew up with, and like what made you want to explore that more?
Well, it's funny. I was not an original addition to the podcast. It was my older sister and my younger sister started it, and it was a bit more specific about like current culture versus past. And as we went on, there's a point where you can like, everybody that's done podcasting knows you kind of have to find an evergreen topic. And we started with a topic that was not necessarily evergreen. So the shift towards media happened sort of out of necessity. And then it was my suggestion because it was, I hate to be one of those nerds that's kind of defined by the media that I consumed, but especially when you don't see yourself in the people that walk alongside of you, you really become like addicted to the things that you can see yourself in. And that was very much my youth. So, for me, it was like anime and horror movies and and punk rock.
I am very familiar with the feeling of like, oh, well, nobody around me seems to get what I'm all about, or like I don't really feel like I belong like in the physical community that I'm in. But then you see on TV someone like the Hex Girls in the Scooby-Doo movie, and you're like, oh my God, they're out there.
And it's like, it's not, you feel like you should see yourself. So it's like a secret you have to keep to yourself,
Yeah.
To bring in a little bit of the media, we talked about this, I think earlier last year, we talked about I Saw the TV Glow, which was a great horror trans media mashup, but it's almost like a meta film where that's specifically talking about how the media kind of allowed you to see yourself in places when there was nothing else around to see. And I don't know, I love that conversation is happening in media and hey, on podcasts too.
When you're kind of revisiting this stuff and you're, diving back into like media that was really important to you growing up or things like that, do you feel like that is coming up in like conversations that you're having about it with other people? Like, are you feeling like the ways that you're examining this stuff on the podcast is manifesting in like the way that you engage with these, like whether it's with the fandom or like how you're engaging with the media?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, on a very just like practical basis, like my girlfriend's just accepted that one of our date nights every week is whatever my still buff homework is. Like, sorry, we're watching this maybe problematic movie from the 90s that I haven't seen in 20 years, so hope it's okay. But I think on a more like actual basis, I think it's nice to, it's sometimes we don't reassess the things that make us, and I am, as a profession, constantly investigating that. And I think it does, like, I'm a visual artist, and I feel a lot of it will work its way back into my art. And it's like a nice give and take with my kid's self. But you get all of these great animal facts and opinions. Is it hard to not just disperse them to everyone around you all the time?
I don't fight it.
You should not.
No, I let it fly. And a lot of times I will, you got to read the room, right? You got to kind of be like, okay, am I at a party where everyone's having conversations? If so, we're not ready for my 15-minute info dump on whatever obscure thing just came up. Like sometimes I'll kind of drop a little tidbit and that's all. And I just let it go. And I'll let people follow up with me on it if they want. But sometimes I'll drop a little tidbit and people will be like, hold on, what was that? What was that?
What, now I'm a little hungry. Like, I don't want to put you on the spot. Is there like it doesn't have to be dinosaur based. It can be, but is there just a beautiful nugget that you're like, do you want to know the wildest thing? Boom.
I think the wildest thing to me is about lemmings.
Oh yeah.
Do you know anything about lemmings? Anything at all?
They throw themselves off cliffs, maybe? I don't know.
That is the one thing that like the vast majority of people know about lemmings. And the reason that everybody thinks that about lemmings is because in the 1950s, Disney filmmakers pushed lemmings off of a cliff and recorded it from like a diabolical camera angle to make it look like they were jumping off of cliffs. And they actually don't do that at all. They never do that. They've never done that ever.
That there was an entire game, one of those computer games that like we played in the 90s that was about trying to build little structures so your lemmings wouldn't run off a cliff.
Yes, they don't do that. They've never done that.
Was that an animation thing? Why did they push them up?
It was this nature documentary that Disney did in the 50s. It's called White Wilderness. And there were a lot of problems with this documentary. Ethics hadn't been invented yet. Ethics was not a thing.
Pre-ethics.
This was pre-ethics.
PE.
Yeah. And so, I mean, you want to talk about like old school media that has not aged well.
Yeah.
And also they bought the lemmings. They weren't wild lemmings. They bought them off of a bunch of like local neighborhood kids. They said, hey kids, we'll give you like, it was like 50 cents a lemming. Go out and round up a bunch of lemmings and bring them back to us. So they bought these lemmings and took them out to a cliff.
Wow.
Do you feel like when you're like having conversations with people about like, oh, you remember this thing we used to watch? Like, do you feel like you ever have to like fight the urge to just like info dump? Like, here's everything I've ever learned about this thing. Or even just like if they remember this thing and you happen to know because you've recently revisited it and explored it that like, oh, there's this thing about it that's kind of icky. Like, do you ever just want to like not harsh the vibe?
Yes, and I think specifically because it's not the normal way I think people interact with media, like especially in this format, is I think Sid and I set a precedent that like we are always divulgent of like if there's problematic stuff, we're upfront about that. We talk about things that don't hold up, but we're not there like we just talked about the Foo Fighters and like we're not there to give you the whole history of the band. We're here to talk about what it meant to us and memories of listening to it for the first time and the boyfriend that introduced it to you, the first time you heard that CD, the first time you bought that CD. So because it's so based on our own personal experience, it's not as heavily fact-based. Right. And like because we do a little, we always do a little bit of research. There's always that stuff that comes up, but it's like I do enjoy that it is a nostalgia-based show. It is about our memories of the thing up against the truth of it, but leaning heavily on the nostalgia. And so I think that there are definitely smarter, better researchers out there that talk about some of our same topics in a lot more detail, but we're talking about, I don't know, what does it mean to you? So
yeah, nobody's going to have your same experience of that. Like anyone could go on the Wikipedia page and get all the facts and information, but like nobody is going to have the same stories as you about that stuff. So yeah. Like you were talking about it being an evergreen topic and also the idea that like nobody is going to have the same take and nobody is going to have the same insight. So I do think that's a good way to make it a little more personal.
Well, it works the same for you, where if you can find a way to address a topic from a subjective angle, then that's always going to be something you can just keep doing because there's not an end to the truth. It's you make it. You're subjectively deciding about animals every day.
I am subjectively as the authority. Throughout the time that you've been making your podcast, Making Still Buffering, has any episode felt like a real standout to you? Have you ever come away from one just like, wow, that was really special? There
are so many things that are close to my heart that we've talked about, or also hearing about things that are close to my sister's hearts is equally fun. But it's hard that way back for insane reasons, there's an episode where we had Lin-Manuel Miranda on. Like,
what was Lin-Manuel Miranda's topic for that one?
Well, before we switch to specific pieces of media, we talked more about like genres of things you experienced growing up. And so that was like our theater episode. So we got to talk about being theater kids with Lin-Manuel Miranda.
With the final boss of theater kids.
The ultimate theater kid, the theater adult. It's true.
With the blueprint, the template of theater kid.
Yeah. It was a true gift from the ultimate theater guy.
That is so fun. What a pull, too.
It's not anything we've ever seeked out. In fact, we kind of made an agreement when there were 3 hosts and a guest. Sometimes it works, but it's kind of a rare thing that it works. That's a lot of talking heads. So let's keep that to a minimum. And then when that fell on the table, because, the friendship of Sydney's husband is Justin, Justin's good friend was Lynn. It was less of a like, oh, this is a cool like celebrity to get on. Like, oh, my buddy Lynn will come on and talk about this. What were your favorite episodes, Ellen?
We've had a few dream gets. We had your brother-in-law, Griffin McElroy.
It comes full circle.
Not brother-in-law, but like double. I don't know. There's some sort of
double brother-in-law. Yeah, that's the technical term.
So Griffin came on and talked about an animal that was his Adventure Zone character for that season was based on the animal, and it was really cool. Fun. And that was great because the McElroy family was a big part of our inspiration in starting a podcast at all. So that was a huge like full circle moment. I had on the guitarist of my favorite band since I was 15 years old. So like they were my first concert. Like I traveled multiple states to go see them, like just huge fan. And then when one year they had like an album coming out and they posted on Twitter and were like, hey guys, we're trying to like do media stuff for our album coming out. If you have a podcast and you want us to come talk, like let us know. And I was like, hear me out. This is nothing at all this is not even a little bit what you wanted. But it turned out I happen to know that their guitar player was really, really into birds. It was like a huge bird watcher and like used to be a park ranger and all this stuff. I was like, hear me out. Come talk about birds with me. And he was like, yes, absolutely. And so he came and talked about birds with me. We talked about sandhill cranes. It was so fun. We had such a great time. We ended up staying in touch. And now we're friends. And we like, when he's in Seattle for a show, we go bird watching and hiking together. And I took a picture last time he was in town. I took a picture of us together and I sent it to my grandmother. And I was like, you're never going to believe who I'm hanging out with right now. And she was like, is that the guy from Jukebox the Ghost?
I was about to ask what band. That's so cool.
Yeah, and he's so nice, and he started his own podcast, and he had me come on for that, and it was just like it was this moment where I was like, wow, like I'm actual legitimate like friends with like one of my favorite musicians of all time through like birds because we both like birds enough to talk about them.
Birds and the beauty of podcasting.
Yes. Just I happen to use my podcast a lot. I abuse the privilege of having a podcast a lot.
Heck
where
yeah.
like I have no business speaking to this human being. You have no business talking to me, but like I have a podcast.
Well, I'll push back and say you have every business talking to every human being because you're lovely, but I fully support you using that privilege to your fullest extent.
I know you said that like you don't normally have guests on, but if you were to have like a guest on, who do you think you would make some space for?
Oh gosh, I mean, if I'm gonna like shoot for the moon, when I think of people that made, it's so sad, people that made the media that I love, they're still alive. Because like it was like David Lynch, oh crap, but still kicking, still doing lots of things. Gone to a few of his speeches. John Waters movies are like everything, and I don't. There is no future where I see John Waters coming on still buffering, but it probably couldn't maintain our PG rating if it did. But in an ideal Teylor world, that's who I would get to talk to.
I also feel like in every interview I see him in every clip from every time he's spoken to another human being, he says the most off the wall, out of pocket stuff.
He's also really like, talk about someone that aged with the times. I went and saw him speak on, he had a birthday show at the City Winery here in New York, and I went and see him to speak. And I was kind of like accepting that maybe this is going to be like a death of an idol. Like maybe he's going to say things that I'm like, he's gotten old. That's okay. But you know, we make those concessions for people that gave us stuff, but then they just kind of, but he went right into the trans topic, and I thought, oh no. And he was like, I don't get it. And I'm not supposed to. As kids, you're supposed to scare your elders. I'm so proud of the trans community for freaking me out and confusing me. I love that. Please make more genders. Get weirder with your gender. Have a dress and a beard and high heels and call yourself a spaceship. And I was just like, thank you. You get it. I love you.
Oh, man.
Is there any goal guest you have out there?
My biggest shoot for the moon would probably be like Robert Irwin, the crown prince of like, wildlife content. I also would love to talk to Brennan Lee Mulligan. Because he's also kind of like, you know, an animal fact bird guy. I feel like he's like a discreet sort of like he kind of keeps it on the DL a little bit, but I do feel like there is that like basis of bird and wildlife knowledge in there that I feel like would be really fun to talk to.
The descriptor of Brennan Lee Mulligan as discreet bird knowledge just is so succinct and correct. I feel like both of those are within your reach. Absolutely, though. Like, you just should send those emails off.
My thing for this year is that I'm going to be delusionally confident.
Yeah.
And that in all things, like, I think I'm just going to put the sort of insecure, like, oh, maybe this will be good. Like, I'm going to put that behind me. I'm going to be delusionally confident this year.
I support that 100%. Ellen, what are your listeners like? Who's your audience?
Well, I have the wonderful privilege of actually being able to be like in communication. We have really active Discord. Our listeners are really active with us on social media. People are like sending me like memes and stuff, reels and stuff all the time. So our listeners are absolutely like I'm hearing back. This really feels like not like a two-way conversation because there's a lot of them. Like there's a lot of y'all. So like it feels like it's kind of like a 1,000-way conversation. But I am hearing back from people all the time. A lot of times the listeners end up being guests. Like I'll have a listener reach out to me and be like, hey, I listen to your show. I'm also like an ecologist and I study this weird animal. And I'll be like, you want to come talk about it?
It's so cool.
And a listener messaged me and was like, hey, I've been really enjoying listening to your show. Here's a picture of me releasing baby snapping turtles into the wild. And I was like, hey, cool. Do you want to come talk about that on the show? And she was like, yeah, sure. And so then she came and talked about snapping turtles. So like a lot of the people that listen are the people doing the work. Like they're the ecologists and they're the biologists. But a lot of people listening are also kids. The zoo books and the Steve Irwin kids of this generation, right? Now that I wouldn't say that there's not a lot of wildlife related content. There is a lot of content out there now that's geared at the younger people. It's just more fragmented. It's a little more difficult to find. It's spread out across YouTube and Instagram. Like there are people doing that work. It's just a little harder to find. So we kind of hear from people from all walks of life. Everything always kind of feels like it's in conversation with the listeners, and I feel like they really make it what it is.
I love that. I really think that I've had the long-held belief that our reaction to, like, animal videos represents the best of humanity. Every time we get a video of just an animal being adorable, everyone's like, I love this. Great. Amazing.
The great equalizer.
Yeah. Like, you're bringing out the best in people.
Well, thank you so much, Taylor. I have had such a great time talking to you. It has been a delight.
No, thank you, Ellen. This was an absolute joy.
And thank you, dear listener, for listening to this very special and very important podcasting event on behalf of me and Taylor and the rest of the podcasters at Maximum Fun. If you enjoy what we do and want to join a community of amazing folks just like you who support independent creators like us, simply visit MaximumFun.org/join.
Maximum Fun,
a worker-owned network
of artist-owned shows
supported
directly
by you.